Moving on to number 21, Missouri Tigers taking on the 15th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. This will be Saturday, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. Couple things. These guys don't have like a long track record, by the way. Missouri, a new member of the SEC. Alabama, a standing foundational member of the SEC. They've only played each other 7 times. It's not like there's this long storied history here between the two programs, but the last time they played was in 2020. It was the first game of the year. It was at Missouri, and Missouri did a pretty good job of making the offense a little uncomfortable that day. Mac Jones and company, they scored 38, but it was not a comfortable 38 if you go back and take a peek at it. Let's go to the questions that will determine this outcome. Question 1, can Jaylen Mio get back on track? He's thrown multiple interceptions in consecutive games for the first time in his career. He now has 6 picks. That's the most he's ever had in a season. He had 6 last year in the entire 2023 campaign. Over the last 3 games, things have kind of struggled. If you look at the inaccuracies, some of the decision-making, the game management, it's led a lot of people to suggest that Jaylen Milroe's injured. I don't know if he is or not. I really don't know. But I do know this. When I've watched him, he looked really comfortable and in command there in the first 3.5 games. I mean, getting the ball out on time, anticipating throws, being decisive, making sure his feet were underneath him as a thrower. And then when it wasn't there, he was escaping north and south, and he was becoming a runner faster than he did at any point last year. Remember last year, he held the ball longer than anybody in the Power 5. It was well over 3 seconds, and it resulted in a lot of pressures. And him not necessarily always understanding when to cut his losses. Hey, throw it away, live to play second down. He took a lot of sacks as a result and got the team behind the sticks. Well, those things had gone away in the first few games of the year, but they've started to come back just a little bit. A little indecisive, a little unwilling to take off, and trying to do maybe on occasion a little too much. So can he get back on track, staying within the offense, keeping his feet underneath him, letting his feet talk to him with the accuracy issues that have plagued him a few times in the last few games? So hoping that that can happen for him. Question number 2, will Missouri be able to apply pressure and affect Jaylen Mio? The last few weeks, Jaylen Mio is getting pressure on about 47% of his dropbacks. Now, some of those are on him, and some of those are on the offensive line. The right side has been very inconsistent, whereas the left side has been rock solid. But they have seen an increased level of blitzing from the opposition the last few weeks as well. Milroe saw blitzes on 28% of his dropbacks in the first 4 games of the year, since teams have been blitzing Alabama 40% of the time. That's the highest rate in the SEC and the 8th highest rate in the FBS. This has resulted in 9 sacks, including 3 against Tennessee last Saturday in Neyland. On the season as a whole, Milroe has not been elite when diagnosing the blitz. His completion percentage when blitzed drops 14 points, and it doesn't appear like when he snaps the ball, there's a plan sometimes. He's such a great athlete. He's so dynamic, but when teams overload the protection, you sometimes just have to beat that rush by getting the ball out really quickly, and that is not yet a step that he's taken with great consistency. So will Mizzou blitz Jaylen and try to make things difficult for him? Because Mizzou, dating back to their time when Blake Baker was the defensive coordinator, they're an aggressive group. Like, they want to throw heat at you and make the quarterback's life very difficult. Question number 3, how healthy is Brady Cook? And frankly, going a little further, how healthy is Missouri overall? Now, it's been documented that Brady Cook left the game last Saturday against Auburn. He went to the hospital, allegedly. I don't know if he did or not. Eli Drinkwood said that he went to the hospital and he realized that he had 2.5 games left at Foro Field, so he decided to come back. I don't know. I don't know what's true and what's not, but I do know this. Him returning to the field, he looked a lot better than he did when he left. When he was rolled up on that right ankle, it didn't look good. It was the 6th offensive snap of the game. I went back and watched it 10 times. It did not look good. So it's something that's worth watching. It might be sore, and with it being as a right-handed passer, with it being your right ankle, it's going to have an impact on how much velocity you have throwing the football. Just think about it. Stand in a passing posture like this and look in the mirror and try to simulate throwing the football. Well, if your right ankle hurts, how hard can you push off that right foot to deliver the football? Think about it from a pitcher's perspective. If you're on the mound and my right foot is dug in right against, right on the top of the mound, and you're right against the rubber and you're dug in and you're having to push off that right foot, how hard can you throw if your ankle is unstable or if you are in pain? It's something worth monitoring. For a quarterback, the left leg, you can deal with that. It's not the end of the world. It's painful, especially as a runner, but it's not the end of the world. But for a right-handed quarterback, having your right ankle injured, that is something that is worth monitoring for sure. He was replaced by Drew Pine, who did not play well, completed just 10 of 21 for 78 yards. But when Cook came back into the game, his impact was felt not just from inaccuracy and efficiency, a managing of the game situation, but I think his impact was felt with the energy and the way that the place kind of was able to lift up, and he lifted the rest of the team up as a result. But he wasn't the only one that left the game last week injured. Nate Noel left the game last week. He's been one of the more dependable backs in the SEC. He's averaging about 6 yards a carry. So they have backs, they have depth at that position, but man, they got a bunch of injuries. This Missouri team is banged up. They are really banged up. So can they go on the road and play at a super high level against the Tide when they are at less than 100%? That will be something worth watching. Question 4, can they get Luther Burton going? Now, Luther Burton has not scored a touchdown in 3 straight games. It's the second longest streak of his career, behind a 5-game streak when he was a freshman back in 22. Now, despite having 10 targets last week, he only had 49 yards. So that's not great. He also, I don't feel like I've seen the same type of burst after the catch that we've seen from him at times in his career. So can they get Luther Burton going, whether it's on the verticals or on the catch and run stuff, or on the things that would get him in space? That will be huge, because this is a young secondary. Tackling in the open field has at times been inconsistent, and getting Luther Burton out in the open field one-on-one with the corner would be beneficial to the Missouri Tigers. And question 5, can Bama run the football in a traditional sense? There are times I feel like with Alabama's offense, there is more that's there in the run game. I feel like there's more that the running backs can do. Now, are the running backs the equivalent of Derrick Henry? Not necessarily. But I think Jam Miller and Justice Haynes are perfectly capable backs to combine to have a really solid 1-2 punch in the SEC. Especially with McElroy struggling a little bit right now, throwing the football and fitting it into tight windows. Can they run the football and maybe get a little bit more attention paid by the defense to get near the box so they can open up some shots downfield, because that's where Milroe's been at his best in the past. So can Bama get the run game going against a defense that's very active and that's not afraid to be aggressive? A couple trends in the game. Alabama is 15-1 straight up, but just 7-9 against the spread after a loss since 2010. They have 3 straight against the spread losses. The other thing about Bama after a loss, the under is 12-3 in the games following. Missouri is 0-3 against the spread in the SEC this season, 3-1 against the spread in all other games. Only SEC team that is currently winless against the spread in conference play. I will take Alabama. I think Alabama bounces back in this game. I think there's still a lot to like with what they have from a personnel standpoint. I still think they can run the football, and I still think they have dynamic weapons that can create problems for the Missouri defense. And last week, too, I noticed Bama take a step defensively. I know it was in a losing effort, but it does appear like that group across the board played better than they had in the weeks prior. I'll take Bama. I think it'll be a nice bounce-back performance in Bryant-Denny.